Hello and welcome to The Conversation. I'm your host, Ryan Campbell. Earlier this year, we discussed education, specifically the role of the Superintendent of Schools office with the superintendent herself, Cathy Parker. Here's that conversation. Joining me here is our Tuolumne County Superintendent of Schools, Cathy Parker. Cathy, how you doing?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, glad that you're here.
Sure.
So, there's a lot of things that we want to talk about. A lot of things going on in schools. You know, the kids are back from the winter break. Can you tell me a little bit about, well, first of all, what does the superintendent of schools do? And, I just think about the school district where my kids go. Mm-hmm. We have a school superintendent for our district, but you oversee all of the school districts, is that right?
Somewhat. So a county superintendent of schools has some oversight for the school districts that reside in the county. And that oversight is mostly around what we call AB, Assembly Bill 1200, which has to do with fiscal solvency. And so part of what the county office is required to do in the county superintendent of schools is to make sure that schools will remain solvent in the current year and 2 years out. So that's one of the big pieces of the oversight that we have. Another piece of oversight that county offices have is around what we call local control accountability plans, which is the plan that describes to the community how they're planning to use their budgetary dollars at their school site. So we make sure that the budgets and those plans actually match. And then from there, county offices actually have a lot of discretion about the services and supports that they provide to districts. So we provide support in regards to providing payroll services, technology services. We provide phone services for all the school districts now. We provide professional development in curriculum and instruction. A big piece of what we do are special education services. So all the school psychologists, occupational therapists, county operated programs for students that are at risk or students that need who are severely or moderately disabled that need additional services. We provide that, but those are discretionary and based on the needs of the districts. But as for the day-to-day operation, that all resides at the school district level. And in Tuolumne County, we have 11 school districts. We have one charter school, and that one is Gold Rush Charter School. And then there are privates, which have private schools we have no authority with, but we do provide a lot of guidance and support, especially around the COVID response. We've been working with them very closely. But each school district has its own superintendent, it has its own board, and they answer to the community in which they reside.
Yeah. So wow, so 11 school districts, is that unusual? Because I mean, you look at other communities and there'll be 1 or 2 school districts for the entire county, but we have 11 and we're a relatively small county. How did that come to be? And
well, if you ever have an opportunity to walk the halls of Tuolumne County Superintendent of Schools, you'll notice that at one time there were something like 35 schools in Tuolumne County, and we have photographs of all of them when they were in existence, and some of those have merged together to form a larger school district, or as they've lost population, they have merged together. You can think of it as like every 15 miles or so there was a new school, and some of them were single school districts like Poverty Hill, yeah. And some of them were larger ones like Sonora High, which was Tuolumne High at one point. So as those have collapsed and consolidated, we have fewer and fewer districts. But I will tell you that for Tuolumne County, it is a little unusual. For Tuolumne County is unusual in the state of California because most of our districts are single school districts. So, Sonora Elementary, it's its own district and it's its own school. And Bellevue Elementary is its own school and its own district. And then we have some outliers like Somerville High School District, Union High School District, which has Somerville High, has an embedded charter school, Connections Visual and Performing Arts Academy, and then has several small necessary high schools that are up in the upcountry and out in South Fork area. But it's very unusual as a county, this organization, but it does seem to work for our county because even though it seems we should have all pretty homogenous way of looking at things, we're a small rural county, each community has its own distinct way of looking at education and providing services for kids.
What are some of the things that we can look forward to in terms of education in Tuolumne County in 2022?
Well, one of the big initiatives from the state that they have provided a lot of funding for over the next 3 or 4 years is around universal TK. So universal TK stands for Universal Transitional Kindergarten. So a few years back, it was decided that we would offer in California a kindergarten program, but for those who were 4 years old before September 1st, we would allow them to come to school as long as they were going to turn 5 before December, and we would call that group of kids transitional kindergarten. And so give them a little bit of a head start. So it's the first year of a 2-year kindergarten program. And so with the new funding that has come forward, those dates are pushed back. So starting next year, every 4-year-old who will turn 5 before I have to remember the dates, before February 1st will be eligible for what's called transitional kindergarten. And so they'll be able to access the first year of a 2-year kindergarten program, which means that we're going to have to expand not just our transitional kindergarten programs, but also our teaching core to be able to find transitional kindergarten teachers in order to staff those classrooms, and instructional aides and all of the other staff that go along to fill that position. So that's a huge effort. And that's the first year of a 3 to 4 year rollout of this expansion of universal TK. And going along with that is expansion of preschool programs and early childhood education programs. And so that's one of the big initiatives that are taking hold now in 2022 as we start to plan, because planning for next year starts right now in January.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to plan for that and ramp that up. It's one of the big initiatives.
And I know that there's been a lot of research in the past, decade or so related to the childhood development prior to age 5, that a lot of is that kind of where this is coming from, that this emphasis on the TK classes and getting kids in school and getting some of that really, really early stage development? Is that where that's coming from?
Yeah, so we know that we see success in the Head Start program, and the eligibility to attend Head Start is pretty limited, and we do have pretty full Head Start programs in our county. When we look at early childhood opportunities in our county, not just through formalized preschool programs, but also child education providers, like through home child care work that we do, and we do that through ISIS, which is Infant Child Enrichment Services, we still have a limited access point for parents in our county. And so TK for us in Tuolumne County, provides parents an option to give those kids some opportunities to we're not looking at necessarily academics. We're looking at social emotional learning growth. We're looking for opportunities for socialization. We're looking for opportunities to learn those skills that we want our youngest children to be able to access and work on and succeed, so that they have a good launch into the K-12 world and then beyond.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that meme you see where it's like, everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten kind of thing.
Yeah, it is.
You're teaching them what they need to know.
We're teaching, which is get along with each other, share, be nice to each other. Don't throw your food at each other when you're eating your snack. Those really.
I've tried to learn that one.
Yeah, you can still work.
Don't always get it right.
Yeah.
And then, so I know that mental health care services has a big role in education, and that there's some expansion in that area as well. What's that going to look like? So
we were fortunate in that in June of 2020, we submitted a grant for mental health services through the Mental Health Services Schools Act. And we were able to submit that even though we were at the very beginning of a pandemic. We were able to work with our partners, and I was able to submit that grant on time. At that point, there was limited funding, and while we scored well, we did not receive some of the funding. They earmarked a portion of the funding for very large counties like LA, San Bernardino, and then medium counties, and then a small amount for small counties. And there were 4 grants awarded for small counties, and we were awarded at that time. Well, when the budget was revised and they found additional dollars, they called me and they said, would you be interested in starting up that grant? Would you, can you, is it like shovel ready? And I said, of course it is. We can do this, and we need it in our county, because when you look at where services are provided for students who need access to mental health services, it really has to be done in the schools. Because once kids leave the school environment, for the most part, you're looking at limited transportation, you're limited access points to find mental health services, and so as those access points are harder to acquire, that means that there are less accesses for mental health services for kids. So if you go to where the kids are and give them mental health services there, that's an easy win. However, we needed to build the infrastructure for that, and that's what this grant is going to allow us to do. So for this is a 4-year grant. We are hiring, in the middle right now of hiring our coordinator for this grant. We are meeting with behavioral health. In fact, I had a meeting today with behavioral health about how we're going to ramp up this grant over the next 3 to 4 years to eventually build a system that's sustainable after the grant time expires. And that's a huge effort.
That sounds amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
You're right. You're going to where the kids are instead of sitting back and waiting for them to take the initiative to seek out mental health care services, which, you know, it's a real struggle for a lot of our families in the county.
And a lot of people think, when you think mental health services, they think about clinical services. Like, I walk in and I see a therapist and I have a 30-minute, maybe an hour session, and then I leave. But there is a continuum of services. And so when we talk about mental health and mental health wellness, we're talking about everything from how do you develop a system of support at schools that start with what we call Tier 1 interventions or Tier 1 supports, which is how do you develop a community culture in your school. A lot of our schools have character counts kind of programs where you want to build on things like characters of respect and you know, for each other, and you'll see that, you know, up in the corridors of your schools, or you'll see that painted on the steps as you walk up steps. Well, that needs to be built, and then it needs to be sustained. So that's part of the social emotional learning. That's part of the mental health that goes on, is have you developed a culture of acceptance and understanding? And then you have things like boys council and girls circle, which isn't necessarily done by a mental health clinician, but it definitely is part of the continuum. And then you have crisis response, when you have emergencies that come up and you need to help your school community process a tragic event. And then you have, of course, those higher level of interventions which require clinical services, which might be one-on-one services with a student or their family and the student. And so this will allow our schools to develop that whole range of mental health services and wellness to support them no matter where a student is in their need for mental health. And I'm sorry, I'm getting really excited. But one of the biggest,
that sounds exciting.
One of the biggest impacts we're hoping to do out of this grant is to reduce stigma that's associated with mental health services. So we have a really fantastic Smile Keepers program. I don't know if you probably all know Erica, who is our tooth fairy. And if you have a child in public school in Tuolumne County, Erica, the tooth fairy, has been in your child's classroom and has taught them how to brush their teeth and the importance of dental care. And that is normalized. It is what kids expect, and hopefully we pay off, and we do have evidence that shows that pays off in dental wellness. And so that should have the same, mental health services should have the same legitimacy as accessing, you know, the tooth fairy. We should be able to feel that, our kids should be able to feel that accessing mental health services, there's no stigma, there's no shame associated with it, and that it's just fact that sometimes we need a higher level of support, and it's okay. And in fact, the school thinks it's so okay that they've actually got somebody on staff and a host of people on staff to support them.
Just kind of changing gears a little bit, now, schools, you know, you are active in our public school system, but it goes beyond that, and you also focus on adult education and you also work in our county jail as well. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those other programs that people don't generally think of when you think of schools?
So county offices tend to operate the programs that are on the periphery. You know, most people are familiar with the K-12 system, and their kids went through it, and they're pretty familiar with it. But we are a county where we embrace any learner. If you want to learn, we don't care your age. We provide infant services all the way up to however old you want to be and you want to have access to education. But our adult education services were started about, I want to say 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, and we were able to be part of what's now called the California Adult Education Program. So we were able to access our funds through our consortium. So we're with a consortium that's based on the Yosemite Community College School District. So MJC and Columbia College determine our footprint. And we were able to secure our funds for that. And what we decided to do in Tuolumne County through our county office is we saw a need for adult education for a specific population. And that was incarcerated individuals who were in the jail system, because there wasn't an education program that led to either them receiving a diploma or a GED.
Okay.
And so that was one of our main focuses. So we started building that program. We also started realizing as they were released from the jail, we would sometimes lose them because they were in the middle of finishing a class and they never finished. So we also reached out and started providing services through the Day Reporting Center. And then also we wanted to reach out to our homeless population, because one of the ways that we can help turn the tide on homelessness is to give them skills in order to get jobs, in order to get access to housing, because filling out applications requires literacy. So we started providing services at the Enrichment Center as well. And so from that, we were able to grow from a half-time position to now a 2.5, we have 2.5 people, well, we have 3 people, 2 full-time people and a half-time person providing adult education services. And 2 of them are going into the jail and providing that. So we'll go beyond the GED and beyond the adult diploma track and provide some skills-based programs as well.
Yeah. Now, superintendent of schools, is that an elected position?
That is an elected position.
Okay.
Yes.
When are you up for are you planning on running again for re-election?
I am planning on running again. I feel like I just got started, and I realized this is the last year of a 4-year term, and so I definitely need at least another 4 years in order to do the things that we have been wanting to do and get them to a point where I feel comfortable handing them off and saying to the county, this piece of your education system is established and ready to stand on its own. But a lot of these initiatives are going to require some long startup times.
You know, a lot of challenges and a lot of opportunities on the horizon.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you coming and talking to us about it.
Sure.
It's very good to have I'll sit down and have a chat with you.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. It was. I realized I have a lot more to share, but we only have 20 minutes. So
we'll have to invite you back again.
I'd love to come and share some more. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Kathy Parker, Tuolumne County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you for watching. I'm Ryan Campbell. Join me every week for in-depth conversations with people making a difference in our community.